Here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. I always starts to clip on these web-based videos I do. I'm recording on the mic. My recording on the laptop, on the mic on the laptop. My apologies for that. Anyway, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Thank you for subscribing recently. 250 subscribers. That's, whatever that is. That's an accomplishment of some kind. I'm here to do Pink Floyd album tiers. I may start doing a whole boatload of these, and maybe this is all I'm going to be doing for a while. This and maybe the movie thing that I've been working on, because these are easy to do and it's just content. Anyway, so should I go in order? All right, so S, B, A, C. No, I don't know why there's not why A and B are on the wrong side. In fact, let me see if I can find another one that actually doesn't have, that has like the order. I don't want, alright, this one works, I think. Interesting. Anyway, alright, so here we go with Pink Floyd. I have some kind of, I wouldn't call them controversial opinions, but I don't have the most typical taste in Pink Floyd albums as other people. So, A Momentary Lapse of Reason, I would give it a I'll give it a C. I might move it later, but I like a lot of it. It was the album that was newest when I first heard the band, and Learning to Fly was on the radio. Sometimes I heard it on the classic rock station on the home of rock and roll, KQ92, in the late 80s, early 90s. But it's not bad. Of course, it doesn't have Roger Waters, and some people consider it just a David Gilmour solo album. It's not really my opinion, but anyway. Songs Are Full of Secrets. I haven't revisited this album in a long time, but I find that people praise it more than I would care to. I like it. I'm going to give it a C also. I mean, its best moments are good. Set the Controls with Heart of the Sun, Corporal Clegg. There's a couple others on this album that ended up on that medley that Shadow Gallery did, but as a whole, it's more spotty. Animals is a perfect record. My number one Pink Floyd album. One of the 10 best records of the 70s in my opinion, and one of the 10 best, 20 best, 30 best, somewhere in that range, best like progressive rock albums of all time. It's just perfectly crafted. The songs just flow so well. The parts you always look forward to, even though it's dark lyrically and can be kind of sinister and very sarcastic, and the images are not pleasant if you think about them. But Misery Loves Company, Honest Truth is more beautiful sometimes, etc. Atom Heart Mother, I'm giving this an S tier also, having seen the documentary piece that Rail NYC did on it. I mean, I've loved it in the last 15 years, but I'm enjoying it even more. I mean, the title track, which is with the orchestra, is fantastic. I never have gotten sick of it. I don't find it boring at all in any one spot. I love Summer of '68. Oh, that's an absolute banger. It's so goosebump worthy. The horn section is great. It's Rick Wright. Fat Old Son is nice and dreamy. Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast I like. I think it's mesmerizing. The music behind it, hearing the different types of food that's being made, and whatever. Especially in headphones, it's very calming and very kind of surreal sounding. So yeah, I love Atom Heart Mother. Metal is, it's weird when I sometimes feel like it gets overly mentioned, but then I come back to it and think, God, I love a lot of this album. I'm going to give it an A tier just on the strength of, none of the songs I've gotten tiresome. Granted, stuff like Saint-Tropez and Seamus are, I wouldn't call them throwaways, but they're just sort of part of the atmosphere of the record. But Echoes is a fantastic piece, even though it's the go-to mention for a lot of people. That and Wish You Were Here, not Wish, but Sign Your Crazy Diamond rather. That love Prague and love Floyd's longer pieces. I think it still lives up to it for the most part. And one of these days it's still great. It gets played frequently live. And A Pillow Wins is dreamy, and Fearless is great, even with the sounds from the soccer match and everything. So more. This is a tough one because there's songs I like on the Niles song, and there's one other track on here that I find to be one of the better tracks from the early period. Do I like it more than Momentary Lapse? and Saucerful. Probably not. That's why I'm going to give it a C. I mean, it's kind of, at times, its best moments would allow it to go higher, but Obscured by Clouds is an S tier to me. And it is, I think, even over the last, 10 years or 5 years at least, it's usurped Atom Heart Mother in being the most underrated Pink Floyd album. The gold that's in the Childhood's End, Mudmen, Stay. What's the other one that's the gold that's in the? There's one other just banger track. What's the Deal? I love those songs. I love those tracks. It's just so perfectly less is more trippy psych pop rock. It was the soundtrack for The Valley. It came right before The Dark Side of the Moon. It was a soundtrack, and I've seen the film, and you hear about it's like the first 25 minutes of the movie, and then you don't hear any more of the soundtrack from my memory. But it's song to song, it's really good, and even the songs that are sort of part of the atmosphere and part of the cinematic part of the film work to me, and that's why it's even usurped in some ways Atom Heart in terms of my most underrated. I flip flop between the two, which is my second favorite behind Animals. For a long time it was Obscured by Clouds, but then I got obsessed with Atom Heart. I don't know. It's splitting hairs. The Dark Side of the Moon has been overplayed to death. On paper and from an influence, importance, etc., and respecting the significance of it, it can't be any lower than a B. But for how much I want to listen to it, how much I have listened to it, how much I regard the songs as classics, as sort of go-tos, I can only give it a B. I mean, some people say it's sacrilege, but some days it might be an A, some days not. It's not an S tier. It's not a go-to, perfect record to me, basically perfect. But that's only because it's been overplayed. Now, the Wizard of Oz thing, of course, is a big deal. People do that. I did do it. The thing is, it only goes through, at the point I think she's in the poppy fields. After that point, you'd have to play the album again. But there's some weird things. It's like a lot of these albums, a lot of others, 2112 with Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and The Lamb Lies Down Broadway with Dark City. There's a bunch of other things that weird stuff happens, maybe just by pure coincidence, or just similar themes. The Division Bell, the best of the later records, of course, by most people, and I'm not an exception on that. I guess I'm going to give it a B, and that may be selling it a little bit short, because the truth is, you go from beginning to end, so how many really good songs are on this album? It actually, definitely is, I prefer it over to The Dark Side of the Moon, and I probably would even put it over Metal in that sense. However, it doesn't have anything like Echoes. Its best moments aren't as great as Metal, so that's kind of why Metal slightly wins out if you're comparing the two. But yeah, I mean, Lost for Words, even though there's the Effenheimer in that's one of my favorite tracks. What Do You Want From Me? I mean, Keep Talking. People don't like the Stephen Hawking thing. I personally think I like it. It fits the theme and the sound of the record. High Hopes, it's Coming Back to Life. There's a lot of just inspirational tracks with great lyrics. It's still Floyd. Marooned, of course, and then Wearing the Inside Out I think it's a Richard Wright piece. Yeah, but the fact of the matter, it doesn't have Roger Waters in it. It's a later Floyd, so I don't quite, from a sort of a sonic production style and sound, the overall sonic sound of the album, I don't favor it as much, just because I kind of look at, from Roger Waters, after Roger Waters left, something I don't like the actual fidelity or the production style quite as much. So that's probably why I can't say it never became attached and I became addicted. It did come out my senior year of high school. I kind of always associate that and then Pulse the year after, around that time. I think that's when I was a senior in high school in 1994, and the new and the sort of last sort of official Pink Floyd album came out. Was this The Last River? The last album. I listened to it, I think, twice, and it's really just soundscapes. It's Rick Wright stuff. There's only one song with some vocals. I'm going to give it a D, just only in that I haven't listened to it very much, and when I have listened to it, it's barely Pink Floyd if it is Pink Floyd. It's like a Rick Wright solo record, or it's demos or B-sides from the Division Bell, basically. The Final Cut, I like parts of it, but I don't like it enough where I listen to it regularly, so it has to go to C. Fletcher Memorial Home, that's one of the tracks I think of for it, the title track. I mean, to me, it always sounded like, the continuation of like a Roger, it's like the precursor to Roger Waters' solo work. I mean, I know some of the other members did do some writing on it, but Roger was driving this just as much, if not more, than he did on The Wall. And sound-wise and theme-wise, it really does sound like a continuation of a lot of what they did on The Wall. Piper at the Gates of Dawn? The best songs on here I really like. I guess if I'm piggybacking and putting like Arnold Lane and See Emily Play, especially those two, and a couple of others tracks that came out in different versions of the US version, it gets bumped up, so I'm going to give it a C. I know it's like the hipster favorite, and that's not typically a thing that's a repulsive part to sometimes when albums get pushed down your ears and mentioned constantly, but it kind of lives up to it. Astronomy Domini is great, even though it's been played a lot, play it live. Interstellar Overdrive, Bike is clever lyrically. You're the kind of girl that fits in with my world. I'll give you everything. And of course, got the Gerald mouse. I've got a mouse. His name is Gerald. He's a good mouse. We have a little toy mouse, and I named him Gerald for my cats. But yeah, I mean, Piper, it's about accurately rated. Maybe it's slightly overrated by the masses. This came to be like in the last 25, 30 years by the hipsters. But there's a lot of merit to how much people love it. Syd Barrett, what he was doing. He did stuff obviously on the next record, and then he had his solo records. But anyway, The Wall, by comparison, has for the last 25 or 30 years, I've felt, at least the last 20 years, is incredibly overrated. That being said, there's still a lot of music I like on The Wall, so it's tough for me to put it below a C. But I think overall, if I'm taking the best stuff on The Wall, it goes slightly above these. This is a tough one. This is the toughest one. Unfortunately, when it comes down to you're looking at it beginning to end how much I want to listen to an album, I have to go C on this one. As much as that's also sacrilege, because it's just so bloated. The concept, it beats you over the head. Songs like Mother and Goodbye Blue Sky. I mean, there's some others, the guitar solo in Comfortably Numb has been played to death, but I still love it. Young Lust, Run Like Hell. I've heard those songs many times. I guess I'm not as bothered by those as much as some of the sort of like the Trial and some of the meandering, depressing, torturous, beating over a dead horse concept on it. I don't have longing to listen to a lot of it. I like some of the cinematic parts, but I figured I concluded many years ago. A third of it is really good. A third of it is the concept is okay, but a third of the concept is just it's too much, and I don't want to hear it. Oh, another song is Hey You, which I love. The radio played a lot, but Hey You is a classic. But so it's like if it was a single disc, I've heard many people make this assessment, it would be higher. It wouldn't be in this S tier, but it might be an A tier. It'd be either B or A. That being said, it's going to have to be C. Ummagumma, that's fragmented too, of course. Half of it's live without a crowd, and half of it is, I believe, half of it's studio experiments that, I guess from watching the video that Rail and NYC did on Atom Heart Mother, was stuff that they were trying to do on it. They end up doing better on Atom Heart Mother. But that being said, I just don't listen to it. I wouldn't put it on D tier, but it really is a C tier, and that's being kind of generous. It's got Set the Controls. It's got a couple of the other early tracks. I want to say Astronomy Domini, maybe, because it was literally, I think, their third record after Saucerful. I think was released. It was the thing they put out. It was an experiment, and they didn't know what they wanted to do, and then they were going to do soundtracks. So the last one is Wish You Were Here, which the people that kind of are tired of Dark Side of the Wall usually praise to no end. I understand why they do, and I'm with them to an extent. but I'm not with them to an extent in that this is still an album that the title track especially gets constantly mentioned and overplayed, and even Have a Cigar to a point, and even among prog circles, the whole Sign You Crazy Diamond suite, a little bit like Echoes, has gotten mentioned and played more to, it's overstated its welcome a little bit to say, and that's why it's not an S tier album. But I think just when push comes to shove, that you look at the overall quality of the music, it does go in A. That, I mean, I'd say the two A, I put that in A right next to Metal. Those are both sort of iffy A's. Like if you're doing out of stars, like they're both 4 stars, but like sort of just borderline 4 stars. Whereas like the S tiers, this is 5 stars, and these are just borderline 5 stars. So, but yeah, I mean, you can see these are the way I look at the Pink Floyd catalog. I don't have Zabriskie Point in here, which I own, but I haven't listened to in a long time. And there's like something else I'm not remembering. Of course, there are a lot of live recordings and stuff like that, but yeah, you could include, whatever, On an Island, David Gilmour's solo album, and all the Roger Waters stuff. And I listened to Rick Wright's Wet Dream the other day, and I liked a lot of it. Not all of it, but I liked a lot of it. I think Rick Wright, I need to spend more time just with all of his solo music, because to me, he's sort of the unsung hero of the band's history. A lot of the early stuff, the pre-Dark Side of the Moon stuff, he was responsible for, especially after Sid left. And so the piano-driven, like on Wish You Were Here, Welcome to the Machine has always been my favorite track. Even though, it's kind of dark, but, it's trippy, it's just wall of sound. It's a very creative way to create that sort of atmosphere that he, in some ways, is kind of a sole progenitor of. I mean, there's been other people like the guys in Tangerine Dream, but, there's no one who really sounds exactly like him. And even the stuff before Dark Side, the stuff he did on Atom Heart Mother, and even a little bit on Obscured by Clouds, some on even Piper, the guy was great, and, whatever. He doesn't have a bad voice, too. His solo music may not lend to the same level of brilliance, but I think I've probably slept on too much of it to not, as much as I appreciate him, to not know it. So, anyway, thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Where do you place all the Pink Floyd albums on the tier? Where are they ranked? I know most people think it's crazy that I have, these other albums as S tier, and then you have stuff like Dark Side and The Wall, and even Wish You Were Here below them, but I'm just going on based on my taste, my experience, my perception, and how much I've gotten out of them, and how much I want to re-listen to them. That's kind of where it comes down to, is like how much I've enjoyed it, how much I want to listen to it again. It may draw inspiration from it, etc. So, but again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.